Records in My Life with Selector Dub Narcotic.
Or your name.
I am Calvin Johnson. Selector Dub Narcotic. Hotter and hotter. Hotter and hotter. Hotter and hotter. Selector Dub Narcotic getting hotter and hotter. Hotter and hotter. Hotter than hot. Take a moment to forget everything you've done.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
How are you on this snowy Boise Monday?
Wonderful here. It's springtime in Boise, and that means it's snowing. It's beautiful. Yes. I just bought this new coat at the thrift store on the way to Boise, and I'm thinking I might need it. So
Perfect timing.
yes,
And well prepared.
very good.
So let's just talk. You're wearing a K Records sweatshirt, obviously. So let's just talk. Let's talk right away. What was the first record or 7-inch you put out, and tell us what
K?
attracted you to the band?
The K, that was Beat Happening. We did a single called Our Secret, back with What's Important, and that came out in 1984. And that was the first record that we'd done. We'd been releasing cassettes for several years at that point, cassette-only releases. So, but we had done some recording with Greg Sage, who is from a band called The Wipers from Portland, Oregon. He produced 4 songs, and we took 2 of those and made a single. Yeah, and we did another session with him, and then we combined those with some other recordings and made an album about a year later. So those are the first 2 records at Run K. Anyway.
Cool. And you yourself have produced, a number of great bands. Give me a couple, or give me an album that you're really proud of.
Well, Beat Happening started in '83, and Young Pioneers were starting maybe a year earlier. So we used to, in fact, that single we were talking about that Greg Sage produced was recorded at the Young Pioneers practice space on their equipment, on their instruments. And so they were a band that was around. We played a lot of shows with them, but they never made a record from when they started in 1982 until last year, when I recorded them at my studio, Dub Narcotic, and we put out an album by them. So it was 35 years after they started, they put out their first record, and I was pretty excited about that.
And let's go back to your youth. Give me a couple of albums that you bought. When some of the first albums you remember buying?
Well, the first records I ever bought were at a garage sale. I bought 2 albums by the Rolling Stones, Aftermath and 12 by 5. They were $quarter each, and
wow.
I just listened to them nonstop. That was, they were. But first new record I ever bought was I got a gift certificate for my birthday, like a $1.10 gift certificate.
That's
so I could
great.
go down to the record store and buy a 45. And I got Ringo Starr, Photograph. This is the first single I bought, first new record that I bought. So, yeah.
Today, do you still, when you visit other cities or towns, do you try and find the time to go to a record store or a used bookstore and try and peruse the vinyl?
Well, I do that.
Facts?
I do that also because of K. I'm bringing in the K, or the things we distribute through K, to see if stores are interested in carrying them. Because a lot of times, for all time since we started the label, our releases are fairly obscure, and they're not widely distributed. Even though we have a very good distributor, they can't work miracles,
Right.
So they're not getting into every place. So when I'm on tour, I like to go to stores and say, here's what I have. And a lot of times people are really excited to get access to things that they just wouldn't find elsewhere. So that's one of the reasons I do go to stores. And
Right.
But a lot of the new music that I find often is either it's people in Olympia that make records. Like, for instance, there's a record store in Olympia called Rainy Day, and I went there, and in the local section, they had this record, Middle Wave. And I was like, oh, I never heard of this. What's this? And I went to the people at this, hey, what's this record? And they're like, I don't know. I said, but it's in your local section. Like, oh, yeah? Oh, I guess somebody must have dropped that off. So I took it home, and I loved it. It's great. So it was a great way to discover something local that I had no idea about. In fact, they just put out, those people reformed as Molten Salt, and they have a new record out called Quiet Hex that just came out like a month ago, and that's really also quite divine.
That's a good band name.
Yes.
It might be a bit of a silly question, but I mean, you do DJ, and is there an album or two which is always kind of in the pile you always grab?
Well, if I DJ, I'm only playing 7-inch 45s.
Right.
I have a box of 45s, and I never bring record albums because it's just a pain in the ass. And 45s are really my favorite format, and that's what I mostly listen to. That question is a variation on a question that people ask when you're a DJ, like, what's the song you can pull out, and that makes everybody dance? And people always ask that, and there is no song. The thing is, you have to judge the crowd, you have to judge the feeling. It's all about what you've played, and I'm not like a DJ in terms of mixing crazy. I'm Selector Dub Narcotic. I choose the records, and the order of play is how I create the atmosphere. So one record that just slays in one situation may just completely die in another. So there's really no magic bullet, as we say.
There's no 7-inch or 40 that you ever have in your kit. One that's like just always mysteriously crops up in the back of the row. Excuse me.
The thing is that it's really more of an addiction, and as you know, when you first shoot up, it's like whoa, and then the 10th time it's like just barely. You wear what? So there's no record that can sustain. Although I will say that once in a while I do put on Rolling Stones 12x5, and I'm like, still got it, But any record that I feel excited about, and I'm playing as a DJ, it goes through that same process where after a certain amount of time, it's like, wait, this doesn't quite have the same magic that it once had. To me. Right. Not to other people, but to me, being the DJ, it needs to have that magic in order to create the right feel.
Give us something. What are you working on these days, yourself or other bands? Is there something? Give us what you're doing.
Well, at K, we have some new releases coming out. Mira's got a new album coming out in the fall, and a group from Olympia called American Nudism has an EP coming out in the late spring. And then I, as Selector Dub Narcotic, I have a new 45 called Bounce It Out, Bounce It On Out. That's coming out in the spring, in late spring. So those are the most recent things on K. Pretty excited about that. And then I've been working on an album as Selector Dub Narcotic in Nashville called A Wonderful Beast, and that's been with its producer there named Patrick Carney. And it's been very exciting to work with him, and a lot of fun. We're just having a blast. So I'm going back to Nashville next month to finish that record.
Yeah, I wasn't going to cut you off, but I listened to Patrick Carney has a show, Boredom. It's called sorry, Patrick, I forgot the name. I think it's called Strictly Boredom, and
Serious Boredom.
Serious Boredom. Sorry, yeah, and he did a big segment on you and Dub Narcotic, and he was Beat Happening, and he was spoke very, very highly of you. So just to
that's very kind of
that. Yeah. So. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate your time, and we'd like to ask our guests for any words of wisdom or advice that you can give to our audience.
Go with the feeling.
That works. Perfect. Thank you.